If you are in the season of waiting, meaning you are waiting on something from the Lord, you've prayed, you've applied, you've done the work, and now it's just time for the results to show. You've applied for that job. You went to the interview. Now you're just waiting. Are they going to hire me? You're waiting for an answer. You went to the doctor and you took a test. And now you're waiting for the answer. You're waiting to find out what's the result. Or maybe you've been working on yourself. You're working on you physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. You are positioning yourself to be the right man or woman for your spouse, and now you're waiting for them. You're like, where are they? Well, here's what we can do while we wait. Thanks to the book of Esther, I want you to know the first thing that we can learn out of the 4 things from the book of Esther is God is working in the waiting. You said, Barbara, what do you mean? When we trust God, we have to know that it's not about yes or no. God is positioning certain things, certain people to help us on the journey, to help us on the path, to make our desires manifest. God is working in the waiting. If you read in the book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 2, it says, Then the king's servant who attended him said, Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the Haram and Susa, the capital, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their ointments be given, and let the maiden who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, and he did so also. Well, if you know the story of Esther, she became queen, but look at what's happening. They're getting information, they're gathering the event, they're putting things in place so that when Esther shows up, it will already be in place. So Queen Vashti is no longer the queen. And so they're making way for Esther. Even though they don't know that Esther is going to be the queen, but they're making way to choose a new queen. And I believe when God opens doors for you, he's already aligned the right people. He's already created the right opportunities. And so we need to have faith that even though we don't see what is happening, we don't see what is taking place, we can have faith that God is working. I don't see what is happening. I don't know what's going on down the street. I don't know what's going on at a job. I don't know what the doctor's going on with, what's happening with the doctor, but I know that God is working. God is working in the waiting. We just have to have patience. We just have to have faith. And we have to understand that even though I don't see things moving, even though I don't understand what's happening, but God is working in the waiting. So that's the first thing we learn from Esther. God is waiting. God is working in the waiting. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. The second thing the book of Esther teaches us is number 2, be obedient and cooperate. You said, well, Barbara, what do you mean? Listen to verse 8 through 11 in chapter 2. It says, So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many maidens were gathered in Susa, the capital and custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Haggai, who had charge of the women. And the maiden pleased him and won his favor, and he quickly provided her with ointments and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen maids from the king's palace, and advanced her and her maids to the best place in Haram. Esther had not made known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had charged her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the Haram to learn how Esther was and how she fared. You cannot get favor when you are hard to work with, when you are not cooperating. So Esther shows us that because she was cooperating with the eunuch, she was able to gain favor. One of the things I had to learn to do is that even though I know what I want, I've had to learn to let people show me what they know. And the reason for that is because you never know what the person knows that can be beneficial to you. And so even though I'm smart, I had to learn. I was like, let this person see. Let them show you what they know how to do and how to do it. Versus I want it my way. And so when you want favor with people, you really got to know how to cooperate. You really have to know how to get along with people if you want to go far in life. Because if you're constantly being hard to work with, hard to get along with, guess what? You're not going to find favor. So Esther is just a woman who, just like everyone else, but she was able to find favor. And this is and the maiden pleased him. So clearly she's getting along with him. Clearly she's cooperating with him, because why would you be pleased by someone if they're hard to work with, they're hard to get along with? And so we have to learn in the process of waiting. We got to be obedient, and we got to know how to cooperate. You say, well, how does that tie into my life? Let's say you apply for a job, and they say that we're going to notify you if there's any changes, right? But you keep calling the people. You keep harassing them. You want answers. Why are they taking so long? You harassing the people is not going to make them move any faster. You getting on their nerves, you not following instructions is not going to help them. And if you are a person who don't know how to follow instructions, that right there is a disqualification. And if you made a mistake, and I've done that before, where I've made a mistake when I applied for something and I didn't do it properly, I owned up to it. I was like, oh, it's my mistake, but I didn't do that on purpose. So if you don't know how to follow directions, you don't know how to do what they're asking you to do, you're going to have a hard time finding favor. The third thing we learned from the book of Esther is that make good use of your time. You say, well, Barbara, what do you mean? In chapter 2, this is all in chapter 2. So if I go back and forth, it's all in chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse 12 and 13 says, now when the turn came for each maiden to go to King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. When the maiden went into the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. There was a lot, right? But the point of this is that they had to use their 6 months for beautifying, oil, myrrh, and then another 6 months with spices. So they had to prepare themselves to be in the presence of the king. And I think when you're waiting for something, this is really the time for you to show your faith. And the way you're going to show your faith is how much you're preparing. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that there's going to be a storm? Think about it. If Noah did not believe that God was going to cause a storm, he wouldn't have built the ark. So if you're praying for something, how you prepare really shows your faith. You have faith based on your preparation. And so they were making themselves beautiful within those 6 months. But you could be using that time for something else. Let's say you want to start your own business. Well, what research have you done to really say that you would be a successful business? Have you learned how to get your business license? Have you learned about where you're going to buy your products? Have you learned how much it's going to cost to get employees? What research have you done to show that you have any faith in what you are really desiring? So Esther teaches to make good use of our time. Every time that we have is for a reason. I've noticed that there are times where it's kind of like the ebb and flow. You've heard it before, where it's up, down, up, down. Whenever I have downtime, that is preparing me for something that's going to come down the pipeline. Like I know this time of stillness is in preparation for something else. And so I have to get myself ready mentally because I know something's about to come down, but I also allow myself to relax. Like a lot of businesses right now are probably preparing for the holidays because they know come October, there's not going to be enough downtime. So they might encourage their employees to take your vacation time now, because when the holiday comes, you may not have the downtime time to do it. So whatever you're waiting for, in the meantime, get yourself ready. Make good use of your time because you may need it and you don't realize it now. The fourth thing Esther teaches us is that you will find favor if it's for you. Verse 15 through 17 says, when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own daughter, to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Hegai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther found favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she found grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. What I mean by this is that the best way to know when something is not for you is when the stars don't line up. When you find opposition, when you find delays, when you find confusion, that's how I know that this is not for me. Because whenever it is for me, it's abundantly more than I could think, act, or imagine. I mean, like, my cup runs over. So that's the cue. That's the cue. That's the way I'm like, okay, is this what you want me to do, Lord? Is this where you want me to go, Lord? Because if it's not smooth, then it's not the Lord. I'm so passive in certain things because I know now, like, no, this is not from God. You're wasting your time. This person is really, really challenging you and not in a good way. This person is not for you. This job is really requiring a lot from you. And they're not giving you much in return. This is not from you. This is not from God. Wait, I got to do this. I got to do that. And maybe it's laziness. Maybe I don't want to push myself further than I feel comfortable. But I've also learned, like, no, God is not going to put a burden on you. You know, the scripture says, come to me, all who are weak and heavy laden, for my yoke is easy. So if God's yoke is easy, why am I stressing myself over something that I really don't need? And so that's how I'm able to discern that this is not from God. So whatever you're waiting for, just know when it comes to you, when it's for you, you're going to have a smooth sailing. It's going to be a smooth process. But if you have to fight, you have to beg, you have to lie, you have to steal, you got to manipulate, you got to disgrace yourself, you got to belittle yourself, you got to have low self-esteem, you're being mistreated. Those are clear signs that it's not from God. There's no argument, there's no question. The stars are not lining up for you. This is a good time to evacuate. This is the best time to quit while you're ahead, because God is giving you all the warnings that you're going the wrong way. So these are the things that we learned from Esther, and I hope they were useful. Come back for more videos. I will be discussing other chapters.